This game nearly killed a franchise, a series that defined competitive chaos, that packed arenas, that survived broken characters and wild metas, almost collapsed seemingly overnight. So grab your popcorn because we're diving into how Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite went from one of the most anticipated fighting games of the decade to the title many fans blame for putting Marvel vs. Capcom on ice. When I booted up the game, I decided to hop on arcade mode to try out some of the characters and get a feel for the fighting style. And I was greeted with a severely underwhelming roster. Now, with Marvel vs. Capcom, you expect chaos and massive rosters with tons and tons of characters from Capcom and Marvel's history. Now, this roster, I think, in my opinion, is decent. But what we had in the past with Marvel vs. Capcom 3, this is unacceptable. Fan favorites like the X-Men, like Wolverine, Magneto, Storm, Deadpool, Doctor Doom, all those Marvel characters are just straight up missing, and those are what built Marvel vs. Capcom, playing as those characters. And with that in mind, I clenched my toes and I picked the dynamic duo of Chun-Li and Gamora, along with the Reality Stone. And thus, my journey into Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite has begun. So the first fight we got was against Strider and Gamora, and initially my instinct was just a button mash, and I found out that spamming square on the PS5 controller can do sort of like these 3-hit combos, and then you can combine it with a special move. And to be honest, that's how I completed arcade mode for the first time. Just spamming 1-1-1 and a special move. So I beat one team and another until I got to the boss, Ultron Sigma. And to be honest, as Chun-Li, I was getting my ass kicked. But when I switched to Gamora, he was toast. And with Ultron Sigma defeated, I thought that I beat arcade mode just like that. I was like, man, this is so easy. This is a cakewalk, and I frankly enjoyed the gameplay until this motherfucker showed up. What the fuck is that? Now, this is Ultron Omega, and I know who Ultron is, but I don't know who Omega is. I don't know if that's a Capcom character, whatnot, but it seems to be some sort of combination of them, some sort of like Dark Khan, you know, if you ever played Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. But frankly, this boss fight, he just sits at the right hand corner of the screen and launches some BS moves, and I found that the reason I beat him was spamming my same 1-1-1 into special move combo. And I finally got a grasp on how to use these Infinity Stones. So if you click left bumper, at least that's what it's mapped for me, you unleash some sort of side power, in which I had the Reality Stone, which sort of releases a homing projectile towards my opponent. And then I also learned how to do a hyper combo, which is sort of like a super move that consumes 1 bar of meter. And once in a while in this boss fight, this motherfucker would end up blocking, which made him immune to all damage, at least from what I know of, and he would send out his Ultron goons to fight for him, which I hate because this boss fight isn't hard to me. I feel like some of the moves are BS, but they aren't thrown out enough to cause significant damage. And with that in mind, doing those blocking and those sending out goons moves just prolongs the boss fight, because not gonna lie, this boss fight took me like 7 to 10 minutes just spamming the same thing over and over and over again. I'm sure if I actually knew how to play the game properly, I could do it faster, but in this video I'm just playing it as going into it blind. And with that, like, I hated this fight. Like, it was just him at the side of the screen. I feel like the variation was low. He would throw out some BS moves sometimes, but I eventually beat him. But when he would block, it would just prolong the fight so much. And this is the best part. Look, I ended up beating him with Gamora, and wait, this is what I get at the end. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Boom! Congratulations! Wow! With all this arcade mode and everything, you don't even get a character ending. You don't get, you know, anything cool, you know, cutscene maybe, you know, a unique character, you know, like how other games do it. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Injustice, everything. We go get a congratulations, and then it jumps to the credits, and then at the end it shows that I unlocked some costumes, mostly just color swaps, and I get character titles. Woo! Whoa! and that was arcade mode. And now that I had the arcade mode completed, what do I, a Marvel vs. Capcom rookie, the only other game I played was 3, what do I think of the gameplay? And honestly, I felt like it was pretty good. I felt like it was smooth. I played this game on my PC. I bought it on Steam for $7, and I connected my PS5 controller, and then I played it like that. I felt like it was pretty smooth. Although I said that I was button mashing a lot, I didn't look up any commands or anything, special moves. I felt like it was easy to play. It was easy for beginners to pick up, which I get it because they were trying to appeal towards, you could kind of see that it's more of a younger audience. But I liked it. I felt like it was satisfying to put these combos together, to switch characters mid-combo and continue the combo. I really loved Gamora's sort of like rushdown style with her huge sword, you know, be hitting you from mid-screen, and I love the flashiness of this game. Although, from playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I do not like how they downgraded from a 3-person team to a 2-person team. I felt like that 3-person team really gave Marvel vs. Capcom its charm in the 3rd game, and I get it that this game has a smaller roster and you would probably want to downgrade to a 2-person team because of that smaller roster. You know, you don't want to be picking the whole team on your roster, right? Or learning, you know, 3 characters out of the however much are in this game, way less than 3. But like I said before, that could have easily been fixed by just adding more characters to the roster. It goes down to the core bones of the game, which aren't good. There's also this Infinity Stone mechanic where you could sort of choose a power-up represented by an Infinity Stone, which gives your team an edge. Some are utility, some are more offensive, and some are like defensive. Like for instance, you could like launch a projectile towards your opponent, you could trap him in a space, or you could use an Infinity Stone to sort of dash around. And I know there's one that could sort of revive your dead teammate for a certain time period. And I feel like this gives the game a little bit of a more uniqueness to it. You know, seeing the different combinations of combos you could do, or using it for utility. It's just fun to, you know, try out the different stones. With all that in mind, let's try out one of this game's biggest selling points and a unique feature to this game, the story mode.
We are born of 2 universes, each of them imperfect, each afflicted with the cancer of organic life. From their ruins, a new universe shall be forged, in the fire of the stones of reality and space. All life remade in our image, in steel, free from the sins of the flesh. We are Ultron Sigma. We are your god.
So the story starts off with a rather peculiar intro with Ultron Sigma, the villain of the game, describing an event known as the Convergence, which is the canonical reason why Marvel and Capcom are together. And it shows that this game takes place about 90 days after the Convergence, in which forces from the Marvel team, you know, certain superheroes, and forces from Capcom team up to try to stop this Ultron Sigma from destroying the world or destroying both universes. After a pretty badass team up, we go on our first fight, which is Captain America and X versus some Ultron drones. And to be honest, it's pretty. And after beating them, we see our first look at plastic Chun-Li. She looks like a plastic action figure, but she is still badass regardless. One of my favorite Street Fighter characters, and seeing this really makes me feel like we should really get a Street Fighter 6 story mode, or a Street Fighter, not 6, but a Street Fighter story mode, because that was pretty badass. And to be honest, I love this Captain Marvel design. And to be honest, I have a preference. I prefer her with the longer hair than the shorter hair. Not for any reason, I just think that she looks better. And we get a badass team up with Chun-Li and Captain Marvel. Then we fight more Ultron drones. After manhandling these Ultron drones, we get a very cool look at the combined power of Chun-Li and Captain Marvel before something very strange happens. Boing! And now we get our first cinematic look at our main villain, Ultron Sigma. God, I love that name. Honestly, I cannot take that seriously. Ultron Sigma. It sounds like Ligma. Ligma balls. And after Ultron is done saying villain stuff, we get our first look at Thor, which I absolutely despise. I feel like he looks like a fake Thor, and I don't like his character in the story mode, which I'll get into. It's very generic. And there's Arthur, and I don't know anything about Arthur, so I have no comment. So what's going on now story-wise is Ultron has infected these Asgardians with some sort of Sigma virus, and they are basically under his control, and the heroes of the story are fighting against them to save Asgard. Also, here's Iron Man. Then we steamroll some more Ultron drones as Thor and Arthur seemingly getting a flawless victory. Then now we are introduced to Dante and Hawkeye, in which they banter about how many kills they're getting, Gimli and Legolas style in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, if you get that reference.
This is getting embarrassing. Let's call it a tie.
And then out of nowhere we're introduced to Rocket Raccoon, and don't get me wrong, he is a badass character, he's pretty cool, but I feel like we're getting into these characters too fast, which is a common theme of this story. There's no development and there's no backstory of how they got to this position or why they're even fighting for this cause. And at this point in the story, we're just fighting more Ultron drones. It's still pretty early on, we're just getting introduced to the characters. We're playing as Rocket and Dante right now, but at this point in the video, I'm just gonna speed past all these fights. I'm just gonna straight up ignore them, and I'll just show you the important parts of the story. And if we're introduced to more characters, here's Chris Redfield from Resident Evil. After a few fights later, the team makes it into the underground facility, which is the inside portion of where Ultron Sigma is hiding, you know, his base. And it seems like, oh, the game's gonna end right here, but in a predictable fashion, it doesn't. And on a side note, I never thought I would have a Chun-Li and Rocket Raccoon interaction that was pretty funny to me.
No, but I've put a lot of punks like you away.
And after a few more fights, it is revealed why the team went here in the first place. And we found the great purple man himself, Ube Thanos. And so Chris Redfield opens the gate and captures the man himself,
We're not leaving
Thanos.
without him.
You heard it himself. They're not leaving without him. And so the other half of the team, which consists of X, Captain Marvel, Captain America, and Spencer and Hawkeye, they are outside fighting some more corrupted Asgardians until they find the main bad guy himself, Sigma Ultron. Or is it? It's Ultron Sigma. And here the team gets utterly destroyed by him, and a pretty cool looking fight scene. I'll just let this one play out so you guys can watch it because it is pretty cool. I have to say the cinematics are pretty good. Then we're forced into a fight playing as Spencer and Thor, in which we are programmed to lose because literally everything that I was doing no damage to him, and I lost and the game continued, so I guess that's what's supposed to happen. Then we are saved by, honestly, one of the most unpredictable things. Chris Redfield. Now this is crazy, look. Chris Redfield against Ultron Sigma. What is Chris Redfield gonna do? I guess you could say that he fought, you know, people along that level in his Resident Evil timeline, but honestly, Chris Redfield, he's just like a special forces officer. It's like putting Chris Redfield against a Thanos level villain, because in the story, spoiler alert, just in case, like, you know, it's an old game, but Ultron Sigma defeated Thanos in this game, in the lore, and Chris Redfield is here saving them as if he's gonna do something. But anyways, Doctor Strange saves everyone, and the game continues, and the team is like, damn, we lost, you know, we gotta figure out a plan before Ultron Sigma destroys everybody. But I guess the benefit is they got Thanos now. The team then argues about what to do with Thanos, and they end up fighting you know, Captain America Civil War Part 1. And basically Iron Man and Chun-Li are on the side of not freeing Thanos because of Thanos' past and history, while Captain America, Dante, and some other members of the team are like, yeah, we need him to beat Ultron Sigma. The game forces us to take the side of Dante and Captain America, and we beat the shit out of Iron Man and Chun-Li. Oh wait, apparently that didn't happen. Thor convinces everyone to release Thanos, so Doctor Strange releases him, and then Thor gets infected by the Sigma virus.
He's infected with the Sigma virus.
You don't say. We then fight and beat Thor with Hawkeye out of all people. Ultron Sigma appears on the comms and gives his villain monologue, then Thor vanishes, and is now a villain and sidelined for basically the remainder of the game. Nova and Gamora appear. Chris Redfield and the team talks about the Sigma virus. And Gamora and Thanos have daughter-father interactions, and Thanos has very, very basic dialogue, and then they devise a plan to capture all the Infinity Stones to help fight Ultron Sigma. We then go to Valkanda, which is a area that Black Panther and Monster Hunter control, two characters that are not playable in the base game, and Black Panther holds the Mind Stone. At first, he does not want to give it to us, but then he learns the hard way because all of a sudden Ultron invades at an exact coincidence timing, and then he listens to us after we help him out. We then go to Aimbrella, a combination of Aim from Marvel and Umbrella from Resident Evil, and this is where the Mind Stone is. Last time I said the Mind Stone was in Black Panther's possession. No, that was the Time Stone. Spider-Man appears and scares the living shit out of Chris Redfield.
And all this time, right under our noses, huh?
Spider-Man.
We then fight a new enemy called the BOWs, which is like a venomized biological weapon, some sort of something infected with the virus that is in Resident Evil. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but at least it's a new enemy type, and you know, like always, they're pretty easy. We beat the BOWs, then Spider-Man's spider sense starts tingling, and it's the very ugly, very malignant Frank West. Right, awesome. He's an awesome character. Play Dead Rising if you haven't. We free Hagar, the city's mayor, from one of those BOW cages that are containing them. We fight him, beat him up. He tries to beat up Frank West because he thinks we're his enemies, but then we calm him down and he joins the team. We then find MODOK with the Mind Stone, and we easily beat him up and retrieve the Mind Stone from him. MODOK starts to transform into something seemingly from the Resident Evil games, like he's infected with the virus. The team escape, and then we just cut to a place called the Dark Kingdom with Ghost Rider and Morgan having an interaction together. Morgan then tries to seduce the Ghost Rider, but Ghost Rider has the strongest will alive to man because he somehow stays focused and he's just on a quest for vengeance, as typical Ghost Rider fashion. And then they end up fighting and Ghost Rider beats her. Doctor Strange then appears and breaks up the fight. They all then join forces to fight that heart thing called the Dark Entity, protected by Jeddah. And then Dormammu comes and starts a fight with Doctor Strange, because they're villains, get it? After we defeat Dormammu, Doctor Strange puts a seal on the Dark Entity, but Jeddah seems to have captured the seal with him, and they fall into that little soul natal. Get it if you play Mortal Kombat? And then that's it. The team escapes because they claim battle is lost, and this whole section is over. And that's a common theme with the story, that these sections go way too quickly, and you seemingly go to areas for like 1 or 2 fights, and then it's over. We cut to Avengers Tower with Hawkeye, Iron Man, and Spencer defending it from Ultron drones, and the Ultron drones seem to be overrunning the heroes, so they go for their last resort. And if you remember correctly, Thanos is still here, so what do? They're gonna free Thanos, and he's gonna help us out in battle. Let's see how that goes. Ultron Sigma appears, and Iron Man and Spencer unleash a pretty cool team up on Ultron Sigma, destroying the place and freeing Thanos. I'll let this one play out. Thanos is free, and we beat the holy living shit out of Ultron Sigma really easily. Ultron Sigma then just disappears again, setting up for the final stretch of the game. We then cut to No Moon, where the Space Stone is held, and all these heroes devise a plan to retrieve it while Rocket and X banter.
Regular batteries?
Strider talks about his nemesis, Grandmaster Mayo, who could have been in this game but isn't. Captain Marvel just says engage him as a last resort.
Understood?
Strider doesn't care, and as a diversion, he is joined by Gamora to engage Grandmaster Mayo. So we defeat some Ultron drones, and on the other side of the team, we find an infected Zero, in which we just end up beating up, and then he is normal again. Then we see Grandmaster Mayo appear from nowhere, defeat his goons, and Strider and Gamora kill Grandmaster Mayo just like that in a pretty cool cutscene. You should watch it.
No dominion over me.
Yet still you die.
Pretty cool, right?
You have my thanks.
X is then
don't
tasked
know.
with wielding the stone, in which
Do I
he
have the right to
hesitates
wield
because
its
he doesn't know
power?
if he's right for it.
Am I?
But then Rocket just randomly gets the stone in a pure Rocket fashion, which is lovely for the character. I love him. Core then disconnects. Then
The
X is
Gravitron
tasked
core.
with finding out what the core is, and he finds out that it's
a
actually the Sigma virus,
payload.
and it's heading towards
Sigma
Earth.
virus.
Dun dun dun.
Earth.
We then cut back to Avengers Tower with all the teams from the 3 separate chapters regrouping with each other. We
Just
see
wait till Mom
Thanos
and Dad
free
get
and all
home.
the teams doing some sort of recap. But then the team with Spider-Man, Frank West, and Chris Redfield escaped from that MODOK creature, as you remember, that bioweapon venomized creature that it looks like. He's free now and he's terrorizing New York City. And this is another hilarious moment of Chris Redfield being the main character. Look at him. He's one-on-one with that thing. And, you know, I guess Resident Evil character's been through worse, but man, like, how is this guy gonna destroy him? He's just a special forces officer, for crying out loud. Then some symbiote gets onto Spider-Man and he becomes black-suited Spider-Man, my favorite version of Spider-Man. We then beat him up and then he's back to normal again. Normal Spider-Man is then tasked with getting the Mind Stone back to Avengers Tower. Then Jetta appears to fuck shit up, but then Ghost Rider and Morgan make the save as Morgan pleads to Jetta to end whatever he's doing.
End this, please!
We then defeat Jetta in one of the most annoying fights in the game. Then reinforcements arrive. Then Jetta disappears again. And at this point of the game, I was already clocked out. These Jetta fights are so annoying because he just keeps escaping in a predictable way. And I just want this to end because with these boss fights, we fight them again and again and again throughout the story. It seems like filler. There's another debrief in which Captain Marvel and Nova explain that the Sigma virus is heading straight towards Earth, while the outside team deal with the venomized bioweapon creature in a pretty cool fight scene. I'm gonna let this one play out too. Jetta appears again, and guess what? Another Jetta fight scene. God, I just want this to end, man. I'm tired of these Jetta fight scenes. We then use a Super Hadouken to finally beat Jetta, and I think this is over, right? But no, apparently in the cutscene, Jetta beat us, even though we clearly beat him in the fight. So then Thanos comes for the save, and guess what? Another Jetta fight scene. Are you serious? We defeat Jetta as Thanos, and he disappears again. You can't be serious. So what's going on outside is the orb thing that's supposed to be a Sigma virus bioweapon is heading towards Earth, and the team manages to destroy it, killing the venomized bio creature, but blowing it up and infecting everybody with the Sigma virus.
The Sigma virus. We're too late.
To quickly go over this next chapter, it basically is a flashback that shows how the universes came to be, and it's 3 days before the convergence in which Jetta appears to Mistress Death and forms a deal with her to give her the souls of his universe, which is a very generic
And what is it
villain
you
arc,
seek
you know.
in
And Jetta's reason for all this is apparently equilibrium, in which he wants the souls of life and death to be equal or something like that. It's a bit confusing, but to do that he merges the Capcom and the Marvel universes through Mistress Death. The next day, Thanos appears to Mistress Death and wants to serve her because he likes her. So then Mistress Death offers him the Space Stone, in which Thanos accepts and keeps in his possession. Thanos then takes Ultron under his wing, and together they decide to rule or try to take over the universe. Then they appear to Sigma's lab, and Ultron then kills Sigma and absorbs his power, which basically turns him into Ultron Sigma. Gotta emphasize Sigma. Ultron Sigma. Then we play as Ultron Sigma and beat up Thanos, and it's the betrayal of the century. Villains crossing villains. And that's how Thanos got played, and that's the entirety of this chapter. So now, the final stretch. They return back to Avengers Tower, and they are informed that they only have hours to live because of this Sigma virus. So Captain America gives a speech to, inspire everybody. And it's just kind of cringy. But however, they talk about Jeddah. Dante agrees to deal with him because he's a demon hunter. The virus will consume everybody if they don't act now, so then they decide to go and attack Ultron Sigma at his base. So the team is back where the game started, and they're here to create a diversion so that Dante could go to the underworld and attack and hopefully claim the Soul Stone from Jeddah. And there's nobody here, the spider sense is not tingling. But then all of a sudden a lot of X-Guardians and Ultron drones appear, and we go on a series of fights with a bunch of random teams and take care of all of them. So then it cuts to Dante meeting Jeddah in his hideout area, but then Jeddah instantly destroys Dante, but then he gets resurrected, and I'm not sure if this is in the Devil May Cry franchise, if this is a thing, but to me he kind of looks like he got like Ultronified or something, He turned into this robot Dante, and then we defeat Jeddah and take his stone. So we cut back to X-Guard, and the team have already made it to, I guess, Ultron Sigma's throne room. But guess who comes out? The Ultronified Thor. So we defeat him as Spider-Man, and we cure Thor. So obviously Ultron Sigma is pissed. So he fights us, he ends up losing, but it's one of those fights where we win, but in, the actual cutscene, he won somehow, and he claims that he's gonna win everything because the time stones are his.
All will soon be ours to rule.
So we're in Able City now in Sigma's lab, and we cut to Team Iron Man, and they're discussing their plans for what they're gonna do while the other team is making their distraction. But Iron Man, I guess, blurts out about what happened to Thanos' past and how he was double-crossed, and obviously Thanos doesn't believe it, and he's like, how do you know that that is not true? So then they end up fighting, and we play as Thanos surprisingly, and then we beat up Iron Man and we beat up everyone else. Thanos then creates a gauntlet from technology in Sigma's lab and absorbs Ryu's Shoto powers, which is the most random thing that happened. So then Thanos claims that is more powerful than the Infinity Stones, and he releases his Infinity Stones to the team to help destroy Ultron Sigma. Then Thanos disappears, and this seemingly creates another villain for maybe a future story in a future game, which, we never got. So Dante returns with the Mind Stone and just gives it up to Ultron. And everybody's like, oh my god, Dante betrayed us. He was working with Ultron this whole time, and that's crazy. But then Ultron explodes into like a huge explosion, and Dante was like, well, it's because he has no soul, that's why he can't wield the stone, which is right, because that's how it is in the lore. But it explodes, or Ultron explodes, into a huge combination of Ultron MODOK. And I don't know how that happened or why that happened, but it happened. And so commences the final boss. So basically I just beat the boss. It's nothing really special. It's the same thing from the arcade mode. There's just multiple phases of the same thing. And basically at the end, everybody gives their Infinity Stones to X, and he channels all his strength combined with all the other heroes of Marvel and Capcom and Doctor Strange's strength circle, and he fires it at this MODOK Ultron Sigma combination, and he is defeated. And that's basically it. That's the end of the story. There's also a post-credit scene that I'll play right now that sort of sets up for the next game. But, the finale of, the main cast is just them talking to each other, recapping, and, last-minute comedies or last-minute interactions that they threw in. But, yeah, that's basically the story of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. you know, at a glance. I tried to go over as much as I could, at least for the important stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I missed or didn't say just because I feel like this video has gone, you know, sort of long for my usual vids. So I cut a lot of it out. But there are some moments that are good, but these are just basically the important stuff at a glance.
X, you alright?
Ultron. Sigma?
Destroyed. It's over.
And this is the post-credit scene. It's hilarious. It's Thanos like charging up a dark Hadouken ball, and he's charging it at Lady or Mistress Death with Jetta there, and that's the end. Thank you for playing. So now that we went over the story, what do I think of it? Now I'm gonna go over the pros first, and one of the major things that I could think of is the story is very ambitious. When it comes to, you know, Ultron and Sigma fusing, that is a unique concept, but I feel like it was executed poorly. Basically, the worlds merging into like a dystopian future, and you know, there's high stakes with the Infinity Stones at like the center of the plot. It's very ambitious, and that's a good thing. Another thing is it's one of the first, or I think it is the first cinematic campaign in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which is done, you know, you could say pretty mixed. But, you know, it is a bonus from just having a simple like online arcade mode that usual fighting games have. Another cool thing is the crossover interactions. You know, there are a lot of cool moments when you see some Marvel characters and some Capcom characters use their powers together. And it's very accessible for new players, especially the fan base that it is trying to hit. It is very, you know, kid friendly, you know, teen friendly. And it has a cohesive narrative, you know. It has a clear villain motivation, but it is generic, and the plot is very easy to follow. There's no like overly confusing, you know, multiverse complications that a lot of stuff nowadays has. But along with the bad stuff, now, if I had to rate this campaign or this thing, I have to give it, you know, mostly on the negative, because if you're gonna do a campaign, you should do it right. And a lot of the times I found that there was a lot of stiff dialogue, you know, lines felt generic or at like surface level, and it didn't have any like wild energy that, you know, fans expected. There's also a very weak emotional impact. It's like they didn't try to hurt anyone's feelings. No characters really died, or there isn't any characters that, you know, had enough time to breathe or open up. Big moments don't always land. Visually in the story, there are uncanny character models. I mean, they look like plastic sometimes. It's just the art style of the game. When you come to look at the story itself, there's a lot of pacing issues where things move too quickly. There's little build-up between major events, and there's fast jumps from like cutscene, fight, cutscene, you know, and it goes like really quickly. The storytelling is also very safe. It's very predictable. It doesn't really take any risks. Like I said, it doesn't kill off characters. It's very safe and, you know, kid friendly, and it really doesn't have any replay incentive. So I feel like it's a great concept. It is decent execution. It's not terrible, but it's not strong enough to carry the game's reputation itself. Now, after playing it, why do I think Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite failed? Now, I think it struggled due to, you know, the first impression battle that, you know, fans had when the game was coming out, you know, the backlash and roster outrage, because it was missing fan favorite characters, and it, you know, hurt emotional investment. Marketing failed to create hype and momentum before the launch, and the internet narrative labeled it sort of bad before launch, and it released, you know, in a very competitive fighting game era in 2017. Decent wasn't enough in this legacy franchise, and then decent is all we got. You know, frankly, the game was mid. Some of the stuff that I found that it did well was it had a mechanically deep and flexible combat system. The tag mechanics, you know, offered real freedom, along with the Infinity Stone mechanic added, you know, strategic variety. You know, I said the story was mid, but a fully cinematic story mode, you know, the effort was sort of there, and it was an add-on to the game. It also had a strong core gameplay foundation. You know, at times this game was actually fun to play. I was able to grind through it and play this game, and I didn't get bored really once during the fights. I don't think it failed because it was unplayable. It failed because perception outweighed the performance. Presentation overshadowed mechanics, and expectations were impossibly high when it, after Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I don't think Infinite may have not been, I don't think it killed the franchise basically, but I believe it became the scapegoat for larger industry decisions, and fans like to say that, we don't have a mainline Marvel vs. Capcom game because Infinite did poorly. The real lesson isn't just make it prettier. It's understanding legacy, community trust, and first impressions, and that's why I think Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite failed. And to close it off, I wanted to just, throw in that I did try, I don't have recording of it, but I did try out the training mode. I tried to find a match online to play online, and I tried the character missions mode. And to start with the training, it's a very basic training mode. The AI is just standing there, and you could look at your command list, and you could set them in certain positions, and you see frame data. But there isn't really any advanced options that other fighting games had at the time, like making your character block or the enemy block and stuff like that. For the character missions, they're mostly like character challenges where, you'll be on the screen, it'll be like, perform this, and you just do that 10 times for each character. So it's nothing really that I was interested in, and I didn't really do it. And for online, I was unable to find a match, which was not really that surprising. And this is my thoughts on Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and the game that almost ended Marvel vs. Capcom. If you like this video, make sure to comment your thoughts on the game, and like and subscribe, and feel free to share it with somebody. I intend to make more videos like this in the future, more breakdown videos. Some of the games I'm thinking of are Saints Row 2 and Silent Hill 4, games that I could easily get and make retrospective videos on. Those I intend to probably be more analytical and deep with the story, since they are, story-based games. But however, again, if you like this video, subscribe, comment, everything, you know the gist of it. And yeah, Mr. Frosty Flames out.